Hello all, good afternoon. It's again my pleasure to welcome all of you for this panel discussion. I once again thank Major General S.C. Parikh, Colonel Dr. Sunil Kumar Rao, Dr. O.P. Yadav, Ms. Upasana Arora, and Commander Navneet Bali for joining us for this panel discussion on building resilient and sustainable healthcare ecosystem. We all know we are living in a time where it has become more than ever important that to make a comprehensive, resilient healthcare ecosystem. It is no more an option, it's a necessity. We are all aware of that. And integrated health security, emergency preparedness, and risk management requirements in the health system, strengthening efforts along with adequate investment in the research and innovation is the way to move forward. But there are challenges, and we have all the leaders from the hospital ecosystem of India with us. And there are opportunities as well. We'll try to find ways or to find answers to those challenges and how can we overcome those challenges. So let me start with Major General S.C. Parikh, Executive Director, Bhagwan Mahavir Cancer Hospital and Research Center. Sir, when we talk about building a resilient healthcare ecosystem, which has to be sustainable as well, what are the challenges in a country like India? Because India has got its own problems, unique challenges. It may have its unique opportunities as well. But your thoughts on that, sir?
Thank you very much.
Yes, sir, it's audible.
Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity. Well, our healthcare system to become resilient and sustainable, there are challenges which are, I think, known to everybody. Some of the speakers in the morning deliberated upon that. Now, if we'll go back and go back to the pre-COVID era, we were having non-communicable disease as a challenge if you study the demographic profile of the disease, and today even the communicable disease also. And what was seen in the first and second wave of COVID was that anyone having the non-communicable disease like diabetes and hypertension, so-called lifestyle disease, and combined with communicable was a great challenge to the healthcare institutions. And we all know that such patients faced a difficult time during that. Now, non-communicable disease in our country, because of the fast growing society, is coming into little early age, vis-a-vis the developed countries. And that age is an age group where he is the bread earner. It's starting from 35, 36 onwards. That is the time he is in his peak time of the economic well-being. So that is one challenge, and coupled with the communicable disease. The second is public versus private healthcare system. In our country, private healthcare system is looking into the population of around 80%, and 20% only rest with the public system. In the private system, the expenditure is more on out of the pocket expenditures. So there is a need to develop more public healthcare institutions so as to the maximum population who have the compromised economic situation can be taken care of. The third challenge to my mind is infrastructure. Well, our society in our country is, urban versus rural difference is there. And we have seen that most of the hospitals and the secondary and tertiary health care institutions are in the urban areas. Therefore, the maximum population who are residing in the rural areas are deprived of secondary and the tertiary healthcare institutions. Next challenge again is manpower, the trained manpower, doctors, nurses, technicians. Due to certain factors, which itself is a long discussion point, people prefer to stay into the urban areas, the cities, because of their own requirements. Therefore, though people say that if you go with the comparison of, one per 1,000 doctors as per the WHO recommendation. We may be, somewhere around near that, but our large part of 80% of the doctors are settled into the urban areas, so the rural areas are deprived of. And the last, to my mind, is the insurance, because we are depending more on the private insurance, and these insurance also, they are very tricky. They covers only the hospitalization. Suppose you take a Mediclaim today and you go for the OPD and you are advised PET scan, it is not covered. What is covered is once you get admitted. So these are the 5 important things which I thought are the great challenges needs to be addressed. Thank you.
Right. Thank you, Major General S.C. Parikh. I'll come back to you. So, taking cue from what Mr. Parikh has said, I'll come to Colonel Dr. Sunil Kumar Rao, CEO, GCS Medical College Hospital Research Center. Colonel Rao, Major Parikh was talking about primarily 5 challenges, which includes infrastructure, insurance, the divide. How to address those challenges? Your thoughts on that?
Yeah, thank you for giving me opportunity to speak in this prestigious panel. I will take the cue from what General Parikh was speaking about. Major problem to my mind which we faced, and we have all of us have witnessed during COVID first wave and second wave, the major disaster, I would say, in terms of the healthcare system failing and feeling of it failing also, and it became a political aspect also, and so on and so forth. So essentially a major problem which we faced, I was in both private sector as well as charitable sector during first wave and second wave, and we could face these problems only because of a good teamwork and sustaining ourselves throughout this challenge. And also major factor which was there which saw us through is manpower. Manpower in the first wave, all of us are aware that they literally deserted the place. In army, we have this, desertion is one of the worst crime which can happen. The same thing actually happened during first wave. In the second wave, it was not so much, but essentially there was a lack of expertise to deal with this problem from the manpower point of view. Why I am stressing from manpower, because that was the major problem area. Apart from infrastructural changes, hospitals could do it very, very fast. They could sustain these infrastructural changes in terms of making door here and donning area and doffing area and getting gas line and getting oxygen, etc. Oxygen, of course, was a crisis situation. But major problem came from the manpower side, where we are not prepared. And being the same ecosystem which is going to face further challenges in the healthcare, I think we must strengthen this particular aspect. Capacity building, what we call, it should be in the real direction, not just for the namesake. Because what happens is we have a lot of other mechanisms of building up the quality in terms of NABH, JCI and what have you, so many accreditation things which have started. But in true sense, till the grassroots level, those have not converted into the quality manpower which is desirable during any crisis or during any epidemic or pandemic sort of this. So I think that is where we should concentrate more as a nation, because it's not only about my hospital or his hospital or her hospital. It is entire nation is affected, and there is repercussion of one hospital onto another. If I refuse the patient, definitely it is going to go to another hospital, where again they are going to face the problem. It's not also about charging them. It's not only about making money in these circumstances. It is also about giving the right kind of care and with the right kind of manpower. So my personal opinion is that infrastructure, definitely it shows in the spending in terms of GDP, etc. But more spending should be towards developing a sustainable manpower structure and manpower requirement in various fields of healthcare, right up to the home healthcare also. Because we all realized during COVID that, home healthcare has taken a front seat in terms of maximum people are at home doing their quarantine or isolation, or whatever facilities temporarily we created in various cities for the patients, also had a lack of manpower and lack of detection, to the extent that there have been so many accidents due to oxygen leakage, and people suffered because of fire incidents and various other things. So basically, again, I'm coming back to the manpower, where the training lacked, and then we started over as a society, we started building up these resources and could sustain through volunteers also. There are so many volunteers who came up and sustained this community infrastructures which were created during COVID to take care of these patients who are not so sick, but at the same time require some kind of care. So I would emphasize that specifically in terms of manpower development, their skill development, as well as the capacity overall for the healthcare to face any kind of emergencies, any kind of disasters which nation faces. Thank you.
Right. Thanks, Colonel Dr. Sunil Kumar Rao. You talked about a completely separate set of challenge, that is training of manpower and train manpower. That can be a huge challenge, and some of us have faced that challenge during the COVID times. But I think that will also help us to make that future roadmap to build that resilient and sustainable healthcare ecosystem to overcome those challenges with adequate manpower and training of those manpower, which is very important, as rightly pointed out by Sunil Kumar Rao. Let's have a perspective from Dr. O.P. Yadav, CEO and Chief Cardiac Surgeon, National Heart Institute. Your thoughts on that, sir?
My thoughts on what?
On the challenges of resilience.
Oh, challenges of resilience. Well, just before we entered here, Dr. Krishnamurthy's presentation I heard, and a lady walked up and she told me that if you tell us what are your problems, we will sort them out for her. And I told her, if I knew my problems, then I'll sort them myself. So my biggest problem is that I don't know what is my problem. And my biggest problem today is, do we know what is resilience? Do we understand this term? Is resilience only referring to addressing adverse events and catastrophes which have taken place, and COVID pandemic has driven our attention to resilience, which is a very constrictive, narrow vision, retrospective vision? I think no. It is forward-looking. It is towards oncoming challenges. Disruptive technologies are coming into health sector. How do we address them? New diseases are coming into the health sector. How do we address them? New therapies are coming into health sector. How do we adapt to them and adopt them? And all of us have to do this, keeping in mind that the healthcare is equitable, affordable, accessible, it is efficient, it is effective, it is collaborative, and we have a feedback system to study that. So resilience, and sustainability, these are very esoteric terms. And a lot of these, phrases and euphemisms and aphorisms we have coined, but they are just things on the paper, they do not work. If, ladies and gentlemen, I'll just take 30 seconds more, Swami, today's Hindustan Time op-ed by that famous diplomat, Sayyid Akbaruddin, if you have read, he said that this global alliance and sustainability and resilience we are talking of, in best of times, it is a mirage, and in worst of times, it's a charade. This is today's Hindustan Times. And he gives 3 case examples. Number 1, we had COVID. We wanted to make vaccines. 1 year back, vaccines were not available. People were willing for vaccine. The WTO could not bring out legislation to circumvent the trade-related aspects of the intellectual property rights, and vaccine could not be released for manufacture by other companies. Second example he gives, what happened to the WHO program of COVAX? Look at sub-Saharan countries which have no vaccines, and look at countries which are storing vaccines for even a 3rd dose, and they have further ahead, but these are not getting. And third, when they said SDR by the International Monetary Fund, which is the special release funds, only 4% were released to low-income countries. So these are all on paper. There is nothing and nothing at all to show in reality, and that's what hurts a clinician like me, which the administrators talk of, but they don't live up to what they speak. That's my biggest challenge.
Thank you so much, Dr. O.P. Yadav, CEO, Chief Cardiac Surgeon, National Heart Institute. You talked about Mr. Akbuddin's article. He's always very clinical in his writing since his days in Ministry of External Affairs and also in United Nations. But that's completely new angle given by you, that we are only talking about sustainability or resilience. These are all on papers, but it's on ground, nothing much is happening. Let me take a perspective from Dr. D.K. Gupta, Chairman and MD Flex Hospital, whether he supports you or he has a different point of view.
Hi, good morning everyone. Thank you for giving me opportunity. I think one of the most important challenges is allocation of fund to the healthcare. We are investing, for last 50 years we were investing around 1.25% of the GDP, and currently it's around 2%. Most of the developed countries, they are investing around 10 to 15% of their GDP on healthcare only. And if you talk about the per capita expenditure in India, it is around 1200 rupees per annum, means 100 rupees per month, means 3 rupees per day. How can you expect that we can do something for healthcare, betterment of healthcare? So if we have good funds, like I told you, the BRICS countries, including India, they are investing around 5% of the GDP. WHO says minimum investment should be 5%, but we are at 2.5% right now. In last 2 years, it has been double. Previously, for previous 50 years, it was around 1.25% or 1%. So if we have fund, then we can definitely face the challenges like poor infrastructure right now we are having. For the development of medical colleges, hospitals, tertiary care, quaternary care hospital, equipment, we are having refurb equipment in most of the hospital in tier 2 and tier 3 cities. And we want to fight these COVID pandemic, COVID viruses like these, then we have to have latest technology, and that is expensive. We need fund for that. If we want to have skilled manpower, we need more training schools, more seminars, more conference, more CMEs for our medical and paramedical staff. That needs funds. If we want to develop more insurance penetration, currently it is around 19% in India. It is quite one of the lowest in India. Then it is, if we want more penetration, that insurance should be affordable and accessible to everybody. And in rural areas, it's still lesser than that. So for that, we need funds. If we want to have quality healthcare to everyone, then we have to increase the rates, revise rates of NHA or Pradhan Mantri Jan Yojana like PMJY. We have low, but that rates are given to the private hospital. Nobody can survive on these rates. It means there is needs of fund to provide quality healthcare to people, those coming on rural areas or they are not having accessible. For last 7 years, there is no revision of CGHS rates. We are getting 150 rupees for a super specialist consultation. How can you expect in 150 rupees, even nobody can get a pizza also? So you are having consultation from a super specialist DM or MCH doctor at 150 rupees. So there are so many things that they are solely dependent on the fund, and fund depends on the political willpower. Like we are investing a lot in defense and other like sectors, but there is a huge demand in current scenario if we want to tackle COVID pandemic or such other pandemics in future, then we have to invest more funds on healthcare. And for COVID control also, we should, Dr. Yadav told that we should not focus on only developed countries, like they are focusing on controlling their developed countries. It needs to be globally controlled. Like if we are not able to control in Africa or in other countries, it will travel. You cannot stop it. You cannot stop by stopping the flights from these countries or stopping, strengthening more screening at the airport. So there should be global control of this COVID pandemic. For that, digitalization is one of the most important challenge in this scenario. For digitalization also, I think India has done great job, but still there is a challenge for the rural area. Telemedicine needs to be more efficient and should be more accessible to the local area. There is challenge also. Like 70% of doctors, infrastructure, beds, paramedical staff, they are limited to tier 1 cities only tier 1 cities. However, about 70% of population is residing in the rural area, tier 2, tier 3 and tier 4 cities. And there is only 30% of beds, nursing staff or paramedical staff. We have seen in COVID pandemic, there was shortage of manpower, shortage of beds in the rural area. I think there are so many paradoxes in current healthcare system, and they has to be dealt with one challenge, that is political will, and second is the finance or funding of the healthcare sector. We always blame private hospitals for overcharging, but we all know that we are among cheapest in the world in providing quality healthcare to our citizens. This is 1/10 of the developed countries. And government is not giving any subsidy on the land allotment. There is no funding of financing feasibility. There is no discount on funding of financing from the government or institutions. There is no single window statutory compliance. We need to have more than 30 statutory compliance to run a hospital. It's very difficult to get these all statutory compliance within 1 year. It takes more than 2 years, 3 years in different setups. So there should be some accessibility and single window system to provide to get these all statutory compliances. So I think these are the challenges we have to raise again and again, and I think government will do something, and there should be some political will to address all these challenges. Thank you so much.
Right. Thank you so much, Dr. D.K. Gupta, Chairman and MD Felix Hospital. One of the main aim of organizing this event has been that we not only discuss, but we create an event report, which we are going to circulate with all the stakeholders so that your voice can be heard. And not only discussion, some action can be taken in the future by referring the discussion of this conference. So Dr. Yadav was talking about a different set of challenge. Dr. Gupta has talked about a different set of challenge, especially fund allocation. I'll come to Commander Navneet Bali, Director, Northern Region, Narayana Health. I'll come to Ms. Upasana after that, because I think it will be easier for Commander Bali to say first, because he has the mic with him there. So I'll come in this sequence. I hope you don't mind, Upasana Arora. So Commander Navneet Bali, Director, Northern Region, Narayana Health. I must congratulate him first, because I think he has completed 4 years in Narayana Health on this 1st December. I was seeing in his LinkedIn post. So congratulations to you. Commander Bali, you heard other leaders talking about various challenges when we talk about building a sustainable and resilient healthcare ecosystem. Dr. Yadav was talking about that when we talk about resilience or sustainability of healthcare ecosystem, we are just discussing. These are on papers. On ground, nothing much is happening. Your thoughts on that?
Thank you very much, and thank you so much for congratulating me on completing 4 years in this wonderful organization. In addition to feeling proud today morning attending this conference and sipping my cappuccino in the morning, I think what really I loved was that today morning the 2 addresses were not by some big healthcare chains of India. They were by 2 startups which were not even 1 year old. And that is what is the most wonderful thing happening right now in the country. When you have young people, not so young people, starting up organizations and somehow trying to address so many gaps that exist in our healthcare system. So I think congratulations to both the startups who presented today morning. I was very, very happy to see that. Now coming to very, very passionate talks by both my co-panelists, and I think let me go step by step. Resilience, if you look at the history of pandemics to sort of come in front of mankind, there have been many in the last 20 years. But did that, or did any one of the pandemics change the way hospitals were constructed? Or did any one of those pandemics really, really change the way healthcare was being delivered? The answer is no. Hospitals continue to be the same hospitals that you saw 20 years back, or 30 years back, or 100 years back. There's an emergency, there's an OPD, there's an operation theaters, and you go and admit your patients and move out, and things like that. So nothing at all changed whenever humankind was faced with pandemics in the past. That is number one point. The second point, which I think was brought very rightly by Dr. O.P. Yadva, is let us not look at resilience by the spectacles of COVID-19, then we will be completely missing the point. What has happened very importantly, and I've been discussing this in many forums, is what is the best thing that could happen to Indian healthcare? The best thing that could happen to Indian healthcare is when people don't have to go to hospitals. That means people remain at homes for most of the things. They only go to hospital either when they require a surgery, or when they have to do a procedure which cannot be done at home, or maybe machines which cannot be bought at the home. Let us say a linear accelerator which costs almost 17 to 18 crores. Nobody can buy a linear accelerator at home. Apart from that, everything can happen at home, whether it is, you name it, and it can happen. You can set up an ICU at home, you can have monitoring at home, you can treat your diabetes with video consultation, talk to doctors, you have got wearables, I'm wearing right now one of them, and things like that. So what has changed really is, let us say many, many years back during one of the pandemics, and you suddenly decided that we'll do home health care, let's say 50 years back from now, you wouldn't be able to do so because you had no connectivity. You didn't even have a phone number, so how do you talk to a doctor? There was no mobile, there was no internet connectivity, there were no apps. So how does a patient get monitored at home? So limitation was technology, limitation was not the most convenient way of treating patients. Today, what has changed? And that is what is interesting. What has changed is technology has become a great enabler today. For example, let me give you, Dr. Shetty takes his morning ICU rounds, not in the ICU, but 4 o'clock or 5 o'clock in the morning he wakes up. He opens his mobile phone, there's an app called Adi. He looks at all the patients on his mobile app, which gives him all the parameters of every patient in CCU or ICU or wherever he wants to look at it. What it does is two things. One, whether he's sitting in an aircraft or at his home or in Cayman Hospital or in Katra, Delhi, he has a real-time access of all his patients. Point number one. Second thing, it also restricts the number of people who would enter and come out of an ICU, thereby reducing the infection rate in a hospital. So see what has happened. Technology has enabled him to do that. Now come back to the home healthcare that we were talking in the morning. As I said, the best thing for Indian healthcare is when people don't have to go to hospitals at all. And today, if a person is at home, they can have a video consultation, second consultation, third consultation, their parameters monitored, almost everything being done. So why should a person go to a hospital? So that's the second change which is happening. Resilience will be built not by the brick and walls. The resilience will be built by platforms which are digital. And if we are able to leverage those platforms to really, do something in the future. Someone spoke about tier 2, tier 3 cities. That's a very wonderful point. See, we sitting in Delhi NCR, sitting in Hayat today talk about many things, and the people here, everyone has access to everything. What about a person sitting in Leh Ladakh? What about a person sitting in Jharkhand? What about a person sitting in Northeast? What happened to those people sitting in the villages who don't have an access to even a nurse? How do they access a doctor? I mean, forget about a, tertiary care. I'm just talking about the basic primary health care. What can connectivity do? So, we've got the means today, we've got startups, we've got people who got brains who started thinking of many of these apps and things like that. So, but the basic building blocks, and I'm sure the government is looking at it, is about providing a mobile connectivity into remote areas. I mean, that has to be done. The second is about we talk about a lot of times about these terms like AI, ML, you know, that artificial intelligence, blockchain, machine learning, these are going to be great game changers. I think half of us don't understand what AI, ML is actually. But what it is really can do is when you have a data which can speak universally, which is acceptable across HIS systems of hospitals, which are both private and government, and with a medical practitioner who's sitting inside a small clinic of his across, you have a viable EMR, then you can have a system which talks across. A patient on his own mobile phone carries that data universally across the country anywhere. That data can be accessed by any doctor, processed, and then it can be used. And then you have an algorithm which can be based on AI ML platforms to give solutions, you know, which are can be used very well. So a viable uniform identity, viable EMRs then become the second important thing, you know, for a thing. The third one I'm just going to finish after this. Separate out, please, the medical and the non-medical aspects of technology. When I talk about the medical aspects of technology, it means what assists a doctor to take decisions and what assists a doctor to do some procedure, like the robotics now. What happens, let us say tomorrow, your technology moves from 5G to 6G to 7G to 8G, and a very, very trained doctor sitting in India, who is only one of his kind because of the skill and God has given him that capability, is able to operate a person maybe in US or in Africa or anywhere. That is one, you know, big enabler. How can that be done? So similar, programs, I'm sure you've heard of these programs like IBM Watson, which help medical oncologists help them to take decisions about cancer patients. You know, they provided algorithms and etc. and things like that. I'm sure many of these will come forward. The second part of the solution is the non-medical solution. What is a non-medical solution? Every little time which a patient spends inside a hospital without being either next to the doctor or in an operation theater or in a lab or getting a test done is a wastage of time, because he and their attendants are then doing nothing in the hospital but either waiting to get discharged, waiting to get admitted, waiting for the bill to be made, waiting for some report to come. It's all in wastage. So the second part of the technology is looking at solutions which remove these wastages completely out of the patient, and you know, they just go to the hospital, get admitted, get their procedure done, and they're out. And that's why when the awareness today is increasing, more and more patients want to go towards robotic surgeries, laparoscopic surgeries, you know, machines which give their treatment in 5 minutes. So the linear accelerators also from Cobalt machines have changed into true beams, which the treatment used to take around half an hour takes just 5 minutes now. And similarly, surgeries like using the technology, the pain is less, the blood loss is less, and you go home very faster. So I just thought I will add this silver lining to sort of a pessimistic scenario which exists around us, which is not far from the truth. But I'm sure if we are able to sort of leverage on what is available now and which is enabling us to do many more things, the future can be much, much more better. And resilience is when resilience encompasses the complete bandwidth of healthcare and not just being looked at pandemic, because 2 years from now the pandemic would be gone, as many pandemics have gone by, and nothing would have changed. But this is the opportunity to now go on that path to really build a resilient healthcare system. Thank you.
Right. Thank you, Commander Navneet Bali. I think when we kept the name of this session on building resilient and sustainable healthcare ecosystem, what we thought is that I don't think that in many forums before the pandemic has come, we used to discuss about resilience factor in the healthcare ecosystem much. I think that has been the greatest learning out of pandemic, and we are not only seeing that through the prism of pandemic, as you have rightly said, that maybe 2 years, 3 years down the line, pandemic will be over and we are back to square one. But what has been one of the most interesting facts of life is that how technology has come up as an enabler to reach out to masses and also to reach out with the medical care. You talked about home care as well. And as you have rightly said, in the beginning of this event, we had 2 presentations from 2 startups, and that has been a success story of India's healthcare ecosystem in last only 1.5 years. You forget about last 5 years or last 10 years. Yes, there are problems. I think those problems can be overcome with conducive policies, implementation of those policies. And as Dr. Yadav was also saying that we all have to come together. there cannot be isolated center of excellences. All have to come together to make that comprehensive healthcare ecosystem which is resilient as well as sustainable. Thanks to you, I'll come back to you. Let's have a perspective from Upasana Arora, Director, Yashoda Super Specialty Hospitals. Ma'am, your thoughts on the challenges of building a resilient and sustainable healthcare ecosystem?
Thank you so much, APEC, because you are doing, even in lockdown also, you people were organizing some.
Yeah, so this is the
webinars and
third edition of Health Tech Innovation Conclave.
Yeah.
Probably we have interacted earlier, but all virtual mode. This is the first time we're all meeting in the last 2 years or so.
So thanks for this opportunity, and all my other panelists has covered everything. But same time, I would like to say that we should think about healthcare from the beginning, like PSC, CSC level. If we really want to create a sustainable healthcare system, we need to go to PHC and CSC level where there should be a strong system. So patient should not come to the big hospitals directly. They are supposed to get treatment, or all the problems should be resolved there. So then there will be less problem for the patient as well as for the hospitals also. Because as you can see in this pandemic, people were coming for RT-PCR tests to tertiary care hospitals. So if we can create such kind of facility to small places, to all villages, like everybody got affected with this corona. But when things come to testing, then hardly you will find that there were so many tests. And you can see when we started this driveway model that people can go and take their test done in a car only, there was less pressure on hospitals. And the biggest challenge for healthcare industry is skilled manpower. All those who are running hospitals, they are very much aware that we are all the time struggling for trained nurses, trained paramedics, trained staff. So we need to create more institute to train manpower. If we will have good manpower, enough manpower, we can, create infrastructure easily. But problem is this, there are big hospitals are already made by government, but when you go to the hospital, you will hardly find that there is a machine of ultrasound, but there is no radiologist. There is a operation theater, but there is no gynecologist. So we need to create more manpower, as well as something should be there for healthcare workers as a incentive. Why they should join healthcare? When somebody has passed his 12th or graduation, he has to choose a career. Why he should join healthcare? Why he has to become nurse, or he should become a paramedical staff? There should be something for their, bright future, bright career. So they have to, attract for the healthcare worker. Same time, I must say that we have done a great job. India has done a great job in form of this vaccination. US and UK are not able to convince their population to take vaccine. We have done more than 100 plus, I think 100 crore and 14, we have done this vaccination of first dose. So it's a big achievement. So you can understand that Indian people are more flexible. They understand if you tell them in a manner that they can understand what is the right for them. So now government has to come in this picture to tell them how they can take care of themselves. Masking is very good in India. Other countries are not listening. More people are always talking about their own rights, that we don't want to get mask and we don't want to stay at home, we want our freedom. Indians are not saying like this, and they are behaving, and they are following all the whatever protocols we have given to them. So in my view, if we have good infrastructure, but same time if we have enough manpower, same time if our this PPP model should be there, government and private sector. If we work together, we can create actually wonders. Lots of things which government can provide us, lot of things which we have, private sector has. So we can do this thing together, and this will be a win-win situation for both the parties, for private sector as well as the government sector. So for me, healthcare has created history in these 2 years. We started telemedicine in a very big way. People were not coming to the hospital. They were thinking, nahi, doctor se samne hi milna hai. But now people are actually happy to taking advice at home. Doctors are also very comfortable to giving telemedication consultation. So for me, as Dr. Bali was saying, that technology is playing a major role in healthcare. Definitely, we need to adopt all the technology, because our Pradhan Mantri ji is also saying this e-health. And when e-health will be there, it will be really easy for all the doctors and all the patients. You can go to any hospital and you can access your record. But for all these things, what is most important thing, that is awareness. Everybody needs to understand whatever government is trying to tell you to do, you have to follow. And I always feel that I am an Indian, and best doctors are Indian doctors. And it's an unsaid story that UK and US is run by Indian doctors only. They cannot run their healthcare system. So if we need to, keep our talent here in India. We need not to let them go to US and UK all the time. So there should be some policy for this talent when they are, graduating or they are leaving the country. We need to keep them with India, so we can do wonders and we can create wonders. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Upasana Arora, Director, Yashoda Super Specialty Hospitals. You talked about that Indian can do wonders. Challenges are there, like challenges of trained manpower, how to attract young generation to go into this field, how to retain the manpower, not going abroad and staying there. I think for those things, policies have to be formed and formulated. I'll start the second set of our discussion, and I'll start with Dr. O.P. Yadav only, because he's sitting right beside me. It will be easier for me. Dr. Yadav, you talked about a major challenge is that whatever you were discussing about sustainability or resilience, these are all on paper. Nothing much is happening on ground. But how do we change that? How do we overcome even that if you see that as a challenge? What is the next step should be? How can we change the scenario, what you're saying?
Well, let me correct. First, it's not that nothing is happening. Nothing is happening probably on the government sector. But by design, very little is happening. A lot of it is happening by default. That is what I wanted to communicate. Now, what we need to do, you are asking me, let's first thing realize that this is not a vertical silo based only on healthcare. See, patient ecosystem is very complex. And we are not talking at all. Lancet Commission, do you know what was the biggest global challenge to healthcare that they labeled? Number one was not non-communicable disease. It was not communicable disease. It was climate change. And we are just not talking about it. Until we have lateral integration, no matter what you do, if the pollution is going to be what it is, if your water supply is not good, if your connectivity is not good, things will not change. And we do contribute to carbon output. 4% is contributed by the healthcare industry. So that also has to be factored in. Number two, we must also realize that we are a heterogeneous country with diverse culture and everything. So we have to decentralize healthcare, keeping in mind the faith and the cultural practices of individual regions. We can't dictate from the center what we want in the different parts of the country. And that is what UNICEF said, that it has to have community participation. That's extremely important. Also, it's important if rich countries could not take care of tertiary care, how can a poor country like India? So we have to invest in promotive care, and we will have to incentivize disease prevention. Today we are incentivizing disease. If you get sick, you can claim from the insurance company 2 lakhs, 3 lakhs to get your bypass. But can you claim any amount to get a blood cholesterol level done so that you can keep healthy? And that needs to be incentivized. So our collective consciousness needs to see a transformative changes. I can carry on ad nauseum with these. I think I'll probably, for constraint of time, limit myself.
Thank you so much, Dr. Yadav. Quite pertinent points made by you, and you talked about the climate change, the integration of various things together, not only just to see the prism of health. You talked about climate change, even the World Bank, UNICEF talks about the water, the drinking water, whether that is easily available to rural masses, that is directly related to health, whether we are looking at that. But I think government has started looking at that as well. So there is a silver lining to that as well. I'll come to Dr. Major General S.C. Parikh. Mr. Parikh, your thoughts on where do you see the future going in terms of building those kind of resilient and sustainable healthcare ecosystem, withstanding all those challenges or overcoming those challenges?
See, I think most of the challenges has been discussed and are known.
So what is the future?
And we are talking about the resilient and the sustainable healthcare now after this COVID infection. But we have been talking about difference between rural and urban health, rural and urban education, rural and urban economy right from beginning. And we listen a lot of lectures from our leaders, and they want to do it also. I mean, I'm not here to criticize anybody. But what I feel is, until unless we stop this migration from rural area to urban area, migration, that is only making congestion, crowd, and polluting the environment. How can we do it? That is very important. So the important, and that will address the problem of availability and accessibility also. When you develop the other towns also, like in a state, if there is a state capital, it is being developed. But every year you pick up 2 districts. And very out of box thinking, because if you want to make a system resistant and sustainable, then you have to think out of box. Out of box thinking is that you move some kind of ministries there. What is environment ministry doing in Delhi? Why can't it be in somewhere else, where there are a lot of industries and all? So at least those places will develop. So shifting from urban to rural areas, I think will make more healthcare facilities, more educational facilities, and more development. Then the second thing which is come up is affordability. Now, again, I will say that one has to look out of the box. We have to, like one point which Dr. Yadav had said, that preventive also you should incentivize. I will say that you make a scheme, where we all have to think for our future. Common Indian has to be educated that you will become old one day and you will fall sick. So either you get yourself insured or you start saving. And incentivize that saving, you open a medical saving account and you make it tax-free. Or with the condition that money should be used only for your healthcare development. So such kind of things which comes, and also those, these days, the fund collection, a lot of NGOs are doing. For everybody, I want to share one particular thing of my hospital. I am the executive director of a standalone cancer hospital in Jaipur. 2014, I retired and I joined that hospital. And one day in the evening, I just talked to the pediatric oncologist and told him, are you going to kill yourself? Because I see you sitting in your OPD till 7 o'clock. When do you do your normal activities, taking care of yourself? So ladies and gentlemen, he told me only one thing, that if I diagnose 100 patients, only 6 or 7 takes treatment. So there is a non-compliance. So I said, what is the reason? He said, reason I don't know. Anyway, I mean, if I go into the entire detail, the reason was when we spoke to people, when we sent volunteers, when we sent our social workers of our hospital there, they came to know that the family has 5 to 7 lakh rupees worth entire property. And if the cancer in child takes the expenses to the level of 5 to 7 lakh rupees, that family is finished. So what about the children who are healthy? And then there's a scheme came. I will say that we have labeled that scheme as Donate a Life. We first requested our trustees. They gave us 1 crore rupees donations, and after that lot of people. And today there are 230 children registered in that hospital. There are 3 primary cancers, child cancers, which all the doctors knows: the Hodgkin's lymphoma, the AML, and equestrian lymphoma. We take risk-free cases, because it is your money, it is his money, so we can't take. And out of 237, 170 kids are cancer-free. So some kind of these type of activities. This of course is a trust hospital, and the trustees are very rich and they want to do social activities, so they could undertake. But a lot of other people also can undertake such thing for the facilities. And the last, from my point of view, is like these 2 starters have come. Basically, the hospital information management system has to come up at a big way at all places, not only in town but in the rural areas, so that a person sitting in say one remote area in Haryana can speak to the AIMS doctors by telemedicine, which has coming up, and take the help of treatment. He can show the image of ECG. The doctor who is sitting here can send the ECG, the echo images, and take the opinion of super specialist, super cardiologist, and give the treatment there. So then the expenses will also less. That patient from rural area will not move. So it has to be a model which has to be not only government, even the society has to work for that. Each one of us, individual, has to work for that. And then the final last is the governance and management has to be good.
Right.
Any model which prepare it has to be good. Thank you.
Right. Thank you so much, Major S.C. Parikh. Let's have a perspective from Upasana Arora. Your thoughts on the future. How can we overcome these challenges and move towards a healthier future? Maybe I request all of you to kindly confine your speech in 2 minutes because we are running a little late. Yeah.
Yeah. Actually, if you see the way our government is working on healthcare, like Ayushman Bharat is a big example for that. So I think future is very bright if we can resolve all these problems like infrastructure and manpower. These 2 things are very much required, as well as some awareness about clean drinking water, mother and child care. So future is really bright because Indians are basically very hardworking and very understanding. It is in our genes that we understand things easily. So from my side, healthcare future is really bright, but with some steps from government and with some help from private sector. Thank you so much.
Right. Thank you. Colonel Dr. Sunil Kumar Rao, you talked about the challenge of trained manpower or adequately trained manpower. That's a challenge. What are your thoughts that how can we address those problems, especially in a country like India?
Yes. Already speakers, all my fellow panelists have spoken very well on various things regarding challenges and how to overcome them. This is a very vast topic, first of all, whether various challenges which we have spoken, they have to be dealt at a very higher level, which is being done, as Madam Upasana also said. At our country level, various measures are being taken, whether it is related with the manpower in terms of health sector, skills council, which is doing their own accreditation in terms of, or making paramedical council, making other aspects which are related with, as Commander Bali also said about the digital aspects, ABDM program. Yesterday only we had a big discussion in terms of how NABH can participate in ABDM and various other digital platforms and digital technologies to enhance either capacity building as well as training people and making them, part of this ecosystem, which is going to sustain further. And again, as General Parikh also said about the telemedicine portion, and many other my fellow panelists also said, so telemedicine also will require, trained manpower. The earlier we have so many peripheral ICUs. Why we give example of COVID is specifically because it's recent in our memory. That's why. There is no other reason. I know that we should not be only looking at it from the COVID point of view, but it has thrown open various things which we were hiding and taking for granted. So this has opened up all the thinking of every person in this country, especially about the intensive care facilities. Dr. Krishnamurthy also spoke about those things, and he's going to speak later also. But essentially in peripheries, intensive care facilities were really felt, and that again can be built up, and which is happening also at national level. I'm a very, restricted to 1 or 2 hospitals only, but all over India, all over country, these things are happening at a fast pace. Another aspect about Ayushman Bharat scheme, which is there, which has also generated a lot of economy in terms of healthcare. Though, of course, as our fellow panelists pointed out, the rates are very low for private sector. But notwithstanding that, there is at least some aspect of assurance of healthcare at ground level, at a grassroots level. So that is how almost when you leave the city and just go to the peripheral hospital just outside the city, there is nothing else but Ayushman Bharat. So we have to believe that and take it ahead. Definitely many changes must take place in that scheme, but at the national level these things are happening very well, and it has to have a dovetailing of the manpower development. Otherwise all of this will again have a failure. That's how I look at it from my point of view. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Sunil Kumar Rao. I'll have a perspective from Commander Navneet Bali. Commander Bali, were talking about the digital transformation which is being taking place in the healthcare sector. Where do you see the future going when we talk about resilience, especially in terms of business continuity and other things, and leveraging newest technologies? You talked about blockchain and AI. Where do you see it we are going towards or heading towards?
Yeah, the future is already here. Healthcare is at the cusp of a massive disruption. What we saw in, we could buy tickets from internet, we could hail a cab. It never happened in healthcare, but now it's happening. Whether it will be shepherded by a big tech giant like Apple, or it will be shepherded by one of the startups we saw in the morning, only time will tell us. But yes, we are at the cusp of a massive disruption in healthcare, and digital is going to be the way forward. The future is also about not going to hospitals at all. The future is about remaining healthy. And the future is not about remaining healthy about the people who are sitting in the room today. The future is about health of thousands and millions of our countrymen sitting in remote places. And that again also will be on the backbone of a digital technology, when those people sitting in the remote places also have access to clinicians and technology across seamlessly. And that's what I say, the future is also already here. Thank you.
Future is already here. Well said, Commander Navneet Bali. Dr. D.K. Gupta, your thoughts on the future? You talked about the funding problem, fund allocation. Come on, there has to be a light at the end of the tunnel. Your thoughts on that?
Yes, great. The future is for digital health, future is for artificial intelligence, future is for health tech. And I think there are so many startups working on HIS, Hospital Information System, LIS, Lab Information System, pharmacy software, there are queue management, like there is a digitalized prescription, but there is no complete solution available in the market. We have to integrate all these HIS, LIS with others, and there is difficulty in this. And there is no standardization of quality indicator in these HIS and LIS also. So I think we need something like concrete in digital part or information system part. Also there should be integration of AI with the HIS or we have clinical data so that there should be like great help for the clinicians for diagnosis early and effective treatment. Also there should be, if we talk about the funding, there should be smart funding for available for the IT, health tech especially, and home care that I'll already discussed by several co-panelists. Like home care is the future. And we have to reach each and every home to provide essential healthcare services. That can be done only when we have like sufficient funds, and I think it should be reasonable also, affordable also. Home care is quite costly right now. There are only few players available in the market. It should be affordable, and there is a huge market for home care. And after COVID, it has been seen that even ICU and other chemotherapy, everything can be done at home care except for emergency and procedure or surgery. And the home care should be integrated with the hospital. They should not be like players, those are unregulated players, those are providing home care without any quality parameters, and they are not linked to the hospital, because in some emergency cases, person needs to be hospitalized and there need to be some for the emergency treatment also. So I think future is for home care, digital health, IT, and the AI, artificial intelligence.
Right. Thank you so much, Dr. D.K. Gupta. I'll come back to you. No, I won't come back to you because we're ending. But before that, Dr. O.P. Yadav wants to make a short point quite fast.
Well, might be committing and risking a harakiri sitting on a technology platform, but I must issue a caveat. Dr. Parikh spoke of HIS. Do you know what was the biggest cause of burnout of medical professionals in USA? It was filling forms for HIS. Madam spoke about e-health. Wonderful. But do we have health literacy, e-literacy, equity in those people who actually need these services, the poor people, the elderly people? Do they have the gadgets? And do they have the personal attitude to use of these gadgets? That has to be factored in. So let's not forget the power of touch, compassion, sympathy, empathy. And I shudder the day when technology overrules all this. Medicine should have a very discreet blend of technology with convention. Only then it will be sustainable and resilient. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Dr. O.P. Yadav. If I take a crux of what has been discussed for the last 1.5 hours or so, I don't have any doubt that if you talk about healthcare, there always has to be a marriage of physical touch enabled with technology. So I think that will be always there for healthcare. But how efficiently we use technology, that is what we have to discuss. All our leaders who are part of this panel have talked about various challenges, various opportunities. I think not only if we see from the prism of pandemic, but overall, the healthcare ecosystem, what is present today, what will be the future, it is also imperative to understand that if this pandemic has not happened, we would not have sit here and discuss about the sustainability or the resiliency factor about the healthcare ecosystem. I think that has been one of the biggest teaching for all of us, that what pandemic has taught us, that what needs to be done and what needs to be done fast. Because using technology or focusing more on health, home care, focusing more on newest technologies, these are no more our option. These are necessity of the life. I think sooner we realize that it will help all of us and the humankind per se. Thank you so much, Major General S.C. Parikh, Colonel Dr. Sunil Kumar Rao, Dr. O.P. Yadav, Dr. D.K. Gupta, Upasana Arora, Commander Navneet Bali for joining us for this very important panel discussion on building resilient and sustainable healthcare ecosystem. Can you have a big round of applause for all of them, please? Please, yes. That shows us that this interaction was interactive, insightful, and it was quite enlightening for all of us. Thank you so much. But before we leave, I request Sanghamitra Mohanty, Director of APEC Newsletter, to come on stage and hand over a certificate or a memento of recognition to all our healthcare leaders who are part of this panel. We can start from You can start from this side or whatever you're comfortable with. We can start from this side, yeah. We can start with Dr. O.P. Yadav, CEO and Chief Cardiac Surgeon, National Heart Institute. This side. Yeah. Dr. O.P. Yadav. A big round of applause for him. He has been a healthcare leader for many years and always speaks his mind. To Major General S.C. Parikh, Executive Director, Bhagwan Mahavir Cancer Hospital and Research Center. Major General S.C. Parikh, thank you so much for joining us today. A small token of appreciation from APEC News Network to all our healthcare leaders. To Dr. Okay, now I'll go to Upasana Arora, Director, Yashoda Super Specialty Hospitals. To Colonel Dr. Sunil Kumar Rao, CEO, GSC Medical College Hospital and Research Center. Colonel Dr. Sunil Kumar Rao. Commander Navneet Bali, Director, Northern Region, Narayana Health. And congratulations for 4 years in Narayana Health as well. Dr. D.K. Gupta, Chairman and MD, Felix Hospital. And can we have a group photo of all the eminent panelists together with this small token of appreciation in your hand, please? Yeah. A big round of applause for a wonderful panel on building resilient and sustainable healthcare ecosystem. Major General S.C. Parikh, Colonel Dr. Sunil Kumar Rao, Dr. O.P. Yadav, Dr. D.K. Gupta, Upasana Arora, and Commander Navneet Bali. Thank you so much. Now.